Okay, start of part 2. We were on Dharma Vandana. As a very fast recap. Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo actually gave us an overview, right, of the Buddha's teachings. What is the goal and how the Buddha employs the Four Noble Truths to guide us towards the eradication of all suffering. Then Sandidiko means what? The Dhamma visible here and now. All right, so it's very good to chant the Dhamma Vandana before you meditate. Dhamma visible here and now. So we can personally witness the rising and falling of physical and mental phenomena. Correct? In this whole world, it's about mental and physical phenomena, nothing else. And then we have Akaliko. Now, Akaliko, I talk about the concepts like cause and effect, the three universal characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. All right? Timeless truths of the way things are. Then next, we will go on to Ehipassiko. Okay. Ehipassiko actually means, all right, after you investigated, it asks us to verify the truth for yourselves. Okay. We are not obliged to accept the Buddha's teachings on faith alone. No blind faith here. You go and verify the truth. But we have to put effort to investigate the Dhamma.
As the wise test the purity of gold by burning, cutting, and examining it by means of a piece of touchstone, so should you accept my words after examining them, and not merely out of regard and reverence for me.
Yes. Okay. This is where the Buddha said this. On a mundane level, we can see, all right, investigating, we can see birth, right? Old age, disease, and death. They are all dukkha, suffering, different degree. It comes with the territory of being alive. There is no escaping it. So investigating the Dharma means we keep seeing this in the light of the three universal characteristics.
What do you think, bhikkhus, is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mind, this I am, this is myself.
Okay, we have to internalize these truths, right? Okay, what are the three universal characteristics again? Impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. So these truths, you look at your body. The body is subject to change and deterioration, so that we will have slowly let go, right, of our clinging to youth, beauty, and even health. And we learn not to fear death. And if we look closely at our experiences in everyday life, we will see that our lives are actually very simple. Correct? It's just that we complicate our lives only. What does this mean? Our six sense bases help us to navigate this world, right, safely in order to live and survive. What's their primary function? With our eyes, we have sight. Ear, we have sound. Nose, we have smell. And because we have the tongue, we have taste. And body gives us feeling, that touch. And the mind base is thinking, right? Now, the six sense bases help us to live and survive. But we use the six sense bases to consume the world.
They are the doorways that people open in order to experience the sweetness and pleasures of the world and to seek amusement by seeing sights, hearing sounds, smelling fragrances, tasting flavors, touching tangibles, and fantasizing over agreeable thoughts.
So through these pathways, we create a lot of drama in our lives because we let ourselves get carried away by our perceptions, feelings, desires, preferences, likes and dislikes. And through the sixth sense basis, we have a lot of craving. Correct? Look at food, isn't it? You have a lot of needs, you have a lot of unmet needs. The craving of sense objects through the six senses. Give you another example. Okay. All right. I'm going to describe these sense bases. For example, you see your boss talking your colleague, a person that you perceive as a rival for a supervisory position that is recently made available. From their conversation, you recognize that your boss praising him for a job well done. So the feeling is unpleasant, both from just the sight of your colleague and from the perception that your boss may think that he is better than you. Then you experience jealousy, anger, indignation, frustration, etc., etc. And you are aware of these feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Why? Because of your consciousness. What are you seeing here? Perception, feeling, mental formation, and consciousness. These are your four mental aggregates. All right. What you're seeing here, right? The five aggregates: Sanya, Vedana, Sankara, Vinaya. Let's go through them again in brief. Okay, this is what you are. You are the five aggregates made up of a form, one physical form, and four mental aggregates. Okay, now the rupa here refers to all matter, sentient or non-sentient, made up of what? The four elements of earth, water, heat, and air. In this example that I've used, we are making use only of the eye and ear faculties. So perception means what? It means recognizing. You also label, you interpret, you infer, you take note for future reference. That's perception. Perception draws from past memories and experiences. Then you're also made up of feelings, right? Vedana. The whole range of feelings can be reduced to just these three, isn't it? What you like, what you don't like, and neutral. All right. If you like something, it can have different degrees. When you don't like something, different degrees. So like, don't like, or neutral. Feeling and perception always go hand in hand, right? Most of the time, perception influences feeling. But you can have feeling coming before perception. For example, when you touch something burning hot, which gives you the perception that this thing is dangerous. Okay. So a lot of people, when they're very caught up in perception, the mind not flexible, no mindfulness, feel a lot more passionate, also mean a lot up and a lot down, emotional, reactive, more suffering. Sankara means what? Fashions the quality of a mind based on feeling and perception. So this includes intentions that generates karma making, mental, verbal, and physical action. That's why I don't think too much, right? Now, Vinaya is awareness through the six sense bases and is often seen as a receptacle for the four aggregates because it is through consciousness that we are aware of all our feelings, perceptions, and emotions. Okay, you need to sharpen your awareness. That's what we are doing, right? Mental cultivation. Most of the time, we're just caught up in the feeling, caught up in that perception. The moment you're aware, you also you realize your sankara will reduce. Now, this is just one aspect of Dharma investigation work. Okay, Dharma Vichaya. So what we can do is we examine and reflect on experiences in connection with our five aggregates and six sense bases. Now, the Buddha frequently used these two themes of contemplation in his discourses. Now, all this is in the Dhammapada.
Mind is the forerunner of all states. Mind's their chief, mind-made are they. If with a corrupted thought, one should either speak or act, because of that, suffering follows. as the cartwheel follows the hoofs of the ox. Mind is the forerunner of all states. Mind is their chief. Mind made are they. If with a pure thought, one should either speak or act, because of that, happiness follows, as one's shadow, never departing.
It shows us how our thoughts influence our moods and vice versa. All right? Your life is really what your mind makes it out to be, isn't it? And how these thoughts influence how we speak and how we act. At the same time, we must remember to relate these experiences to cause and effect, and to the three universal characteristics. So when we keep investigating this way, we will notice that we deal more with unskillful qualities than skillful ones. Think about it. How often do we have positive thoughts and how often do we have negative thoughts? Scientists have established that out of the average 12,000 to 60,000, 80,000 thoughts we have in a day, 80% to 90% of our thoughts are negative ones. All right? How many of you wake up in the morning appreciating the weather and go, oh, I'm so happy, there's another new day. I'm so happy to go to work. No, right? Right? Now, this is due to the brain's negativity bias.
The negativity bias is the tendency for humans to pay more attention or give more weight to negative experiences over neutral or positive experiences. Even when negative experiences are inconsequential, humans tend to focus on the negative.
So our brain apparently has a greater sensitivity to unpleasant information and news. And the bias is so automatic that scientists could detect it at the earliest stage of brain's information processing. I mean, really honestly, if you don't like someone, you hate someone, you think of that person every hour. Do you spend your time thinking on the people that you like or you feel neutral towards? That's the tendency of the mind. That's why it's so important to cultivate it. As okay, let me just give you some three scenarios.
You receive overwhelmingly positive feedback for something, perhaps a school assignment, your performance at work, your outfit, etc. Yet you find yourself fixating on one or two criticisms. You had an intense argument yesterday and you spent today bitter and angry despite it being objectively good. You did something embarrassing years ago, but the cringe-inducing memory remains fresh in your mind.
All these scenarios a bit familiar. Okay, now scientists believe that the negativity bias helped our ancestors to make intelligent decisions in high-risk situations. But this does not totally explain the effects of negative responses like sadness, self-righteous indignation, and indifference. It's not. Why? The Buddha tells you why. Why we react to situations this way is essentially because of the underlying tendencies of greed, the wanting, the hatred, the aversion, and the delusion, the ego, which actually gives us this fault-finding mind. And then we keep feeding this mind, okay? All right, blaming external. So when we do Dharma investigation, we have to take into account these habitual inclinations of this mind with right view, right? And exploring how they create problems for ourselves and also for others around us. And ultimately, all these problems can be traced back to our sense of self. We are the center of our own universe. We think about ourselves a lot. Just take speech, for example. Since we have to think before we speak, we spend at least 60% of our conversations talking about ourselves. And research shows that talking about oneself produces the highest level of brain activity, right? That is associated with motivation and reward. And this applies even if no one is listening. That's how important the self is. You know, that ego, right? Right? Two different perceptions can lead to war. But if you understand the five aggregates and know that you're just mind and body, then your ego should shrink and not take things so personally.
We also have this self-referential obsession, comparing ourselves to others, worrying about how we are doing, how others perceive us, or how we perceive ourselves in relationship to the past, present, and future. And it becomes incredibly convoluted. If we take a good look, we can appreciate how much of a burden all of this is. Everything ends up being about myself, I, mine, myself.
Mm. So we make life very complicated for ourselves, don't we? So logically, if self is responsible for all our problems, we have to be free from this self in order to be free from our problems. So to be free from this self, we have to realize the truth of non-self, right? Like for example, Venerable Sariputta, okay, the Buddha's very staunch disciple. He was scolded, but he did not react. Why? Why did the Venerable Sariputta did not react? Because to him, it's just noise. It's not about him. It's not about the self. So what the Buddha taught are different strategies of verifying the Dhamma so that we can eventually see the truth of non-self for ourselves. All right? So when you go into Samadhi, you will see that you're just made up of a mind and a body. There's actually no soul. Okay? So here,
All 84,000 sections of the Dharma are simply strategies for getting people to turn and look at the mind. The Buddha's teachings are many because people's defilements are many. Still, the way to put an end to suffering is only one, nibbana.
so the reason the Dharma is taught in so many ways is because the people that the Buddha preached to had very different levels of comprehension, different inclinations, and different goals in life. So he had to actually tailor each discourse to guide the listeners in the most effective way. And because the Dharma is found in every facet of our life, it is possible for us to see Dharma in different situations and from different angles. All right. And every one of these strategies involves a person looking inwards at the mind. With that, we move the quality of opanayiko. Now, opanayiko means leading inwards towards the peace within the mind, towards nibbana. Now, even though most of us know this for a fact, we still have this tendency, right, to blame someone or something else for our dukkha, our suffering. And we also have the tendency to turn to the external world for the solutions to our problems. But our concept of the world is very different from the Buddha's.
Venerable Sir is said, the world, the world. In what way, Venerable Sir, might there be the world or the description of the world?
When asked to describe the world, the Buddha said this.
Where there is the I, samidhi, where there are forms, I consciousness, things to be cognized by I consciousness, there the world exists or the description of the world.
So the Buddha said the same thing for the other five senses. This is the internal world. So what does he mean? When the Buddha mentions world, he usually refers to the world of formations, sankhara loka. In other words, the world as experienced by our six sense bases. We create an entire world out of what we experience through sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts, thinking. And we end up living in that world. For example, hearing. Someone blames you and two other colleagues for knocking over a glass and spilling water all over the documents, even though it was actually not intentional. One colleague woke up, right? Just reprint the document lah. So one is very stressed out because he's probably new and the accuser is the boss. Or for example, you got angry because you were not personally responsible and you didn't like the accuser in the first place. But can you see? Three different reactions. There are three different reactions because of what? Thinking. Because of your perceptions. All right? Your sankhara, your thought formation, your feelings are different. Think about it. If the accuser and his words is the cause, then you and your two colleagues should end up with the same reaction, right? Same cause should give the same effect. But that didn't happen. So you are responsible for your own anger. You created an angry world for yourself and end up living in that world. So this is the world of experience which the Buddha's teachings is mainly concerned with, a world that we ourselves are responsible for creating. And because this world exists within the mind, we have no choice but to turn inwards for the solutions to our problems. Haha, this is what the Four Noble Truths is all about. First, our suffering and the cause of our suffering are found in our minds and arises, all right, our own actions, our own views and decisions, and it's really not from outside. And so only we alone can eliminate this suffering. No one can do it for us. And anyone can cultivate the mind to end suffering. You live life in accordance with Noble Eightfold Paths. So the Four Noble Truths may appear very lofty, isn't it? Because they encapsulate all the Buddha's teachings. But by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, we can actually see, brothers and sisters, the Four Noble Truths in many aspects of our daily life. For example, you did something which you thought was right, but then you received this comment. Haha. Such a comment is naturally perceived as insensitive, unfair, and very hurtful, right? And it stirs up the anger, the resentment, or the indignation, that dukkha. So your natural instinct is to blame that person for your dukkha. But neither is that person nor his comment responsible for your suffering or dukkha. What is? It is your unmet needs. Your unmet needs is the cause. That person's comment is just a trigger which serves as a condition for a craving that was not fulfilled. So instead of our mind going outwards and reacting to the situations as we typically do, so what do? We turn our attention inwards to investigate the Dharma, correct? All right. So this is what. So we recognize our dukkha by observing our physical and mental reactions. This is the first noble truth. You know that you are having dukkha. You recognize it first. So we observe objectively without being carried away by our perceptions, our thinking, our thoughts, and our feelings. Not be caught up in your three mental aggregates. Then you know that your own unmet needs is the cause of the suffering. This is the second noble truth, right? Craving causes suffering. You crave to be spoken to nicely. Here, we can also see cause and effect, right? That is dependent on, condition, right? So when we observe the mind and body in this way, we are maintaining what? Present moment awareness, which means that we are no longer paying attention to the supporting condition, which then ceases to occupy our mind. And when we remove this condition, craving ceases. And when cause ceases, effect also ceases, right? Our mental states will actually fade. So what we are doing right now is identifying the Four Noble Truths as they are experienced. We see the Three Noble Truths based on the law of cause and effect. Then once your anger dissipates, you can then turn to your partner and say, that was rude, that's not nice, in a very calm mind. Because if you had reacted earlier by saying, hey, you are the stupid one, not me, then you see what happens, a quarrel, correct? Now we go back to seeing. All right, once your anger fades, you see impermanence. We also see the unsatisfactory nature of the whole process. All right, because we cannot stop these skillful mental states, these unskillful mental states, and therefore dukkha, because you can't have full control, all right, over the dukkha from arising, and we cannot command them to fade, like, but you can only, the moment you recognize dukkha as dukkha, that's only when it fades. If that's the case, correct, no full control, how can we see these conditioned physical and mental phenomena as I, mine, and self? Nothing happens because we want it to. And nothing stops happening because we want it to. Everything happens by way of cause and effect. So by observing cause and effect, we will always see the three universal characteristics. And we are able to practice this way because of the Four Noble Truths. So where do we find the cultivation of the Noble Eightfold Path? Where? Do we find it out there? No, it's in the mind. That is Opanayiko. The right practice leads inwards, all the way from the start of our final destination, start of our initial destination to the final destination, which is Nibbana. Next is Pachatam, Veditabu, we knew he. It means to be experienced by the wise. What do you mean by the wise?
Studying the Dharma by reading and listening results in perceptions and concepts. Studying the Dharma by practicing it results in actual levels of Dharma in the heart.
We are actually not referring to wisdom in the conventional sense of the word. Wisdom in Buddhist practice starts with theoretical knowledge and understanding, because you need a map to actually show you where to go. But true wisdom accumulates through practice and direct experience, through deconditioning the mind and understanding the mind. A wise person is one who has actual levels of Dharma in his heart, practicing the Buddha Dharma. It is therefore not just enough to recite the Four Noble Truths by heart. I take it by now all of you have memorized the Four Noble Truths, right? We have to keep applying the Buddha's teachings in our daily life and constantly reflect on them. And through the cultivation of the Noble Eightfold Path, we are able to see Dharma in many ways. We are able to witness how both skillful and unskillful mental states affect the body and the mind here and now. And this, of course, is the quality of Sandhi Diko, right? We can see how these physical and mental experiences are subject to the law of cause and effect, okay, which is always dependent on conditions. And from here, we can understand how karma and dependent origination work. Through cause and effect, we see how every conditioned phenomena is subject to change. From here, we can understand the three universal characteristics. And this is the timeless truth of the Dharma. Timeless truth is akaliko. And we have to verify this truth for ourselves, which is ahipasiko. For example, we see how our lives are defined by the way we react to the experiences. I repeat, We will see how our lives are defined by the way we react to our experiences through the 6 sense bases and the 5 aggregates. Haha, and from here and other Dharma investigation work, we understand all our suffering in life can ultimately be traced back to the sense of self, that ego. Actually, the whole of the Dharma is directed towards first getting the ego down to a manageable size, and then eventually getting rid of it altogether. So to see and experience Dharma, we have to look inwards, right, at our mind. Through our practice, we accumulate wisdom, gradually bringing us closer and closer to enlightenment. And all this is possible because the Buddha expounded the Dharma in a way that makes it possible for us to know, see, and realize the Dharma. Right? Swakato Bhagavato Dhammo. Everything comes back to the Four Noble Truths. So the first 3 demonstrate the inherent qualities of the Dhamma. The other 3 qualities involves us as participants.
We use these 4 noble truths for our development. We apply them to ordinary things in our lives, to ordinary attachments and obsessions of the mind. With these truths, we can investigate our attachments in order to have insights into them. The 4 noble truths require an ongoing attitude of vigilance, and they provide the context for a lifetime of examination.
This is Nongpo Sumedho. He is the first Western disciple of Ajahn Chah. Okay. Now, what is actually covered so far are just some aspects of the Dharma practice that can be done in ordinary life. I just did my best to summarize everything for you guys. So Dharma investigation work does not have to be restricted to formal meditation sessions. You can do Vipassana in your daily life. At the very minimum, right, you start with right speech. I've completed the right speech series. Always start with right speech because that will slow your mind down by a lot if you're more aware of what comes out of your mouth, right? So in life, if we abide by the Buddha Dharma, every situation around us can actually teach us something and actually bring us closer to the truth, right? I want to address what it means to say take refuge in the Dharma. Okay, so when we are chanting, it's a reminder to us, right, to take refuge in the Dharma. When we say to take refuge, it actually means that we seek protection, right, or shelter from danger, from hardship. Taking refuge in the Dharma, therefore, doesn't mean taking refuge in philosophy or intellectual concepts. It doesn't mean taking refuge even in the faith. No, it's faith alone is not enough. Now, Longpo Sumedho, right, always say to take refuge in our awareness. Now, this awareness is about keeping us in the present, in the here and the now, where our attention is turned inwards at the mind. Right? So this awareness is knowing of the mind and the mind objects, right? So we can see, understand, and realize truths that apply across time and space. Very simply, the qualities of this awareness are the qualities of the Dhamma. And by choosing to see the truth and understand how this truth affects our mind and body and our lives, we can then create the right causes and conditions to direct our actions towards less dukkha, towards more peace and happiness. The kind of happiness, the higher happiness that will gradually lead us to enlightenment. A happiness that's not gross, dependent on external. A happiness that comes from that steadiness and calmness of the mind. So whenever we apply the Four Noble Truths in our lives, we are actually protecting this mind And this is taking refuge in the right way. All right. In fact, the Four Noble Truths are described very succinctly by Pra Ajahn Tun Atulo. Okay, I will read this. Mind sent outside is the origination of suffering. Which noble truth is this? The mind sent outside is the origination of suffering.
Second.
This one, result of mind sent outside is suffering. All right. Second noble truth first, followed by the first noble truth, right? That's dukkha, right? Because you send your mind outside. Then the mind, seeing the mind is the path. Which noble truth is this?
Off.
The third noble truth. No, that's fourth noble truth, correct. Fourth. All right. So you cultivate until you see the mind. This is the result of the mind. Seeing the mind is the cessation of suffering. This is the yes, very good. So everything the Buddha teaches all boils down to this. All right. Now, once we have decided that the Dharma is to be our vehicle to spiritual freedom, we have to step on board. It is not a quick fix solution. It is a lifetime of training. Okay. Someone once commented, that I think quite a lot of people commented to me also that how come no one is actively spreading Buddhism the way that's done by other religion, right? If the Buddhism is not like, we have the software, but we probably don't have the hardware, right? I can tell you, I'm really not concerned about those who do not want to board the train of the Noble Eightfold Path. I'm actually more concerned that for those who have boarded the train and then got off before they reach the destination. All right, so I would like all of you to continue your practice. Why? The Buddha once asked his monks that, suppose a person were to throw a yoke with a single hole into the ocean that is beset by turbulent waves blown by wind in all directions, then there is this blind turtle which would come to the surface once every 100 years. Now, what are the chances that this blind turtle will put his head through the yoke? The monks replied,
It would be by chance, Venerable Sir, that blind turtle, coming to the surface once every 100 years, would insert its neck into that yoke with a single hole. So too, bhikkhus, it is by chance that one obtains the human state, by chance that a Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, arises in the world, by chance that the Dharma and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shines in the world.
the Buddha is not saying that everything happens by chance. He is merely pointing out that it's very, very rare to get a human rebirth in an era where a Buddha arises and where his teachings are available. So once we get on the path, brothers and sisters, we have to stay on the path, or we will miss this rare opportunity to learn, to practice, and realize Dharma. If we step off the path, it is possible to get lost in wrong views, right? For a very long, long time, because it takes a lot of effort to decondition the mind. So why do we pay homage to the Dhamma? We pay homage to the Buddha Dhamma or the Buddha Vachana, the Buddha's words, because the principles of the teachings carry with them a realistic and achievable ideal of unconditioned happiness. And we respect the truth that is Dhamma because the realization of this truth can give us that unconditioned happiness. So when we see the Buddha, we see the Dhamma. When we see the Dhamma, we see the Buddha. So paying homage to the Dharma is also paying homage to the Buddha and vice versa. So if the Dhamma Vandana is shorter, easier to memorize this. All right, the more you practice, the more you see the merging of these two, right? The Buddha Vandana and the Dhamma Vandana. That's how we pay homage to the words of the Buddha and the truth contained within. And where is the truth? It is within us. We just have to find it.